Someone believes money is the root of all evil, but they want more of it.
What are some other elements you know of as wealth killers?
What we found was it was 400% better than to double a return.
So I can't until I have money.
But here's why this is a wealth killer.
How does a person go about that?
All right, here we go. So the first wealth killer.
Jeez.
Number 3 wealth killer.
People look at that and they say, oh, wow, that was so risky.
It's amazing how much faster I can create cash flow now.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I'd say that the last wealth killers.
Which of these 5 wealth killers were you most guilty of? Do you know who Naval Ravikant is?
I do.
Okay.
I've never met him,
Well, yeah.
but I know of him.
He's an insightful guy. So he has a quote and I'm curious about your approach to avoiding this. So he says, in physical terms, stress happens when something wants to be in 2 places at one time.
It kind of reminds me of dilemmas,
Yeah.
where here's a perfect example. Someone believes money is the root of all evil, but they want more of it. But they don't want to be evil. So they're stuck in that kind of stress of like, oh, I want to have more money, but I don't want to be viewed as evil.
Yeah.
Because it's a contradiction. It's not reality. It's not a principle. It's a confusing thing where they've taken it out of context, or it's an emotion that they've been governed by because of something they heard from a family member or something that they adopted from some, childhood memory.
Yeah.
And so it does create a lot of stress. And I think a lot of stress comes from either we're reliving the past with whatever our current thought process of it is today, and in regret and, ruminating on what we should have done instead, or we're fantasizing about a future that we either feel is difficult or dangerous, uncertain or unknown. And so we're not actually present. I had stress last night because something happened and it kind of triggered something from like, ooh, this is an old emotion of me feeling taken advantage of that's now being brought in the present because of a situation that I'm projecting based upon what I think will happen, not knowing exactly what will happen, and creating a story. I have a good friend, Joey Klein, I was talking to him on the drive up here, and he talks about most people's emotions in the moment come from things in the past. And what if you create this exciting future and then you take yourself there mentally and feel all those great emotions to bring them into the present instead of letting the past dictate it. Yeah. And so I was thinking about that when I was going through that process last night. And also just like being like, oh yeah, there's just emotions. But back to the quote is, yeah, I think that stress comes from, basically projections of either what we believe from the past or what we think is going to happen in the future. And it's not us being in the moment.
Yeah. A lot of people, as they start going forward, they have these stress element in their life and they're not aware of them. What are some other elements that you perceive or you know of as wealth killers that most people are unaware of?
All right, here we go. There's number 1. You want to know why? Let's think about how that's governed.
Yeah.
Scrimp, sacrifice, delay, defer, reduce, cut out, do without, and so budgeting is coming typically from scarcity.
Gotcha.
And so there's a solution that, like some people might hear that and be like, oh, are you just saying to be reckless?
Yeah. And I think that'd be a lot of people's argument against that.
Is it reckless or is it reckless?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, I think it's reckless.
With an R. So someone will tell us in the comments that we're wrong.
Yeah. But this is the thing is it's a mindset governed so much by reduction. Here's the problems with it. First one is not valuing our time. How much time does it take to budget? Not looking at things that are productive as useful. So what if that money would have went into marketing or developing a skill or hiring someone to buy back time, right?
Because most budgeting excludes those components, or
it's the mindset is we want to reduce what we spend to have more in the future. And so it's really governed on sacrifice.
Gotcha.
But here's why this is a wealth killer. If wealth is something that's a far out date, right? And the only way to get there is to decrease how we enjoy life today. We actually will decrease our energy, decrease our value, and we will increase the time it takes for every transaction trying to save. So we lose time, we lose energy, we lose enjoyment, and we're not focused on value. We're simply focused on reduction.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. We'll sum it up this way. No one shrinks their way to wealth,
Yeah.
right? That's the key. No one shrinks their way wealthy. And budgeting is all about shrinking, and it kills wealth because wealth is a state of mind, a state of being. It's a feeling of enjoyment. It's being present. And if it's all about, hey, I'm going to wait to enjoy things till one day, so I'll do without now. You know, Ramsey always says, oh, live like no one else will live today so you can live like no one else can live tomorrow. But the problem is tomorrow you still live like a miser because you've learned the only way to get there is budgeting. Budgeting's hold on to what you have because you never know if you're going to have enough. Take what you can while you can. What can you do without, even if you might enjoy it? And what if the things you do without would have been the things that would have helped you grow, helped you add more value, helped you to feel more creative, helped you to feel more fulfilled, help you to feel more joy, increase your energy, increase your value. That's such a wealth killer.
Are there people in your life that you've seen that once they got to that age of retirement, that scrimping mentality stuck with them and ruined even like that retirement age or their...
A lot of my mom's side of the family, the Quintos, you know, my Aunt Mary, I think she had the first dollar she ever earned when she died.
Wow.
I mean, she just had, I've told this story before, she had $500,000 plus in her savings, but applied for welfare. Because she just saved.
Man.
Her house didn't smell good. Like she just, you know, like everything was about reduction. It was cash in coffee cans that were buried in the cellar.
Wow. How much cash?
I just remember my grandpa showing me when I was a little kid and I was thinking, damn, that's a lot of hundreds. So I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, I read a book that was given to me as a gift, as a joke. And it was people writing into Dave Ramsey and him responding. And it was this family saying, yeah, our daughter follows all your stuff and now we can't get her to spend any money. It's like, yeah. So this budgeting mindset, it's the mindset. Now, those that have heard me for a while know about mindful cash management. You know, number one, eliminate your destructive expenses. What's destructive? Uncontrollable vices.
Yeah.
Borrowing to consume. You know.
So like borrowing money to buy, you know,
a trip and then you come home and there's no asset attached to it.
Yeah.
You know, it might be recurring charges that you're not using.
Gotcha.
You know, just destructive, like lead you in the wrong direction. Second is going to be lifestyle. Just pay cash. Don't borrow to consume.
Yeah.
I mean, these are great.
Like it's okay buying stuff that, you know, maybe doesn't produce a return,
right?
But not borrowing for that.
Right. And then protective. You want your protective expenses handled. You know, insurance, asset protection, corporate structure, you know, liquidity. Then this is the game changer. Productive expenses. If I had this black box here, and every time I put in $1, $2 came out the other side, how often should I put that dollar in there?
as many as you have.
See, we're not going to budget that. We're
gotcha.
Increasing productive expenses until they're no longer productive.
Yeah, because it'd be silly to be like, you cap it at $1,000 a month, right?
So the first wealth killer is to budget.
Okay.
Okay. The second one is to accumulate. This is a wealth killer. This is the belief that wealth is a function of how much money do you have and can put away, takes money to make money, how much risk are you willing to take to try to get a rate of return, and how long are you willing to wait. So money times rate times time is the accumulation philosophy. Here's my problem with that. It gets everybody to believe that it takes money to make money.
Gotcha, because you can only accumulate as much as you start with that formula.
And so what does that get people to do? Budget.
Yeah.
Cut back, right? Back to the first one.
Or steal.
Right? And then high risk equals high return is the belief. And so now they got people taking more risk to try to get return.
Gotcha.
Which means higher chance of loss. Then time. Best things come to those who wait, not in money. The money just passes them by. This is the long haul.
Yeah.
So this accumulation philosophy, I'll just go to the solution here. It's velocity. Velocity just says we take the money supply, we have the GDP divided by that money supply, tells us velocity. What's velocity? How many times does a dollar exchange hands? Every time that exchanges hands, through goods, services, experiences, the more wealth there is.
Could you give me an example of that formula in application?
So, someone bought Killing Sacred Cows for $20. I would say, cool, I'm going to take those $20. I'm going to buy me a burger. Okay? They now have the book. I now have the burger. The burger joint now has the $20. They could pay salary, rent, like whatever portion of that, and then whoever that went, it just keeps the money going. A dollar, like once you spend it, it doesn't end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
It keeps going, keeps circulating.
I think beforehand you had said someone else's expense, your expense is someone else's income.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So exchange creates wealth. In Weston, I just hear all the time. I just saw it on the video we were watching yesterday when Rose was helping us out, talking about compound interest, and it's a miracle from Einstein. No. He said compounding numbers. It was misquoted. And compounding interest, the problem is it takes forever. It takes 30 years. First 10 years, it barely grows. Then it starts reinvesting. But it's that last 10 years where you get the exponential growth. Well, guess what? If in this first 10 years, you can create economic independence, now, the next 20 years, you could take 100% of every dollar earned and buy more assets. Think about how much faster that is. And especially if those are tax efficient things like real estate or businesses or intellectual property, like all of a sudden we have tax advantages and cash flow. That's exponential.
Yeah.
Right? So the number one wealth killer, budgeting. Number two is the accumulation philosophy, savings. Number three wealth killer, tax. Tax is a wealth killer because as people make more money, if they don't have tax strategy, they have so much money that goes to the government.
Yeah. So should people just evade tax? Is that the...
Well, we got it. So this is the deal. There was a judge that once told this story. He said, imagine that if we had this river here, right? And over here's a bridge, and down here's a bridge. Now, let's say that you're driving, and now you can choose which way to go, which bridge you're going to go to. This one, let's say, is a half a mile closer, but it has a $5 toll. This one is a half mile further, but has no toll. If you drive and you pay nothing here, that's evasion. If you drive here and you pay nothing, that's avoidance.
Yeah.
Right? We want to avoid tax, not evade tax. People that evade tax, number one thing they don't report their full income, which is a big no-no in the United States.
So they lie about their...
Number two, I would just call illegitimate strategies. And you can see at irs.gov the dirty dozen. You can also see it. There's a site at justice.gov that shows like who the tax promoters of tax schemes are.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So you can see like, yeah, this is under attack. So, there's no reason to evade when there just takes strategy and knowledge to avoid. But if someone's an entrepreneur, eventually their biggest bill is tax.
Yeah.
And if they could get strategic about it and cut it in half, that's year in and year out to their bottom line, money in their pocket.
And a lot of that is through structure or what?
Yeah, I could go through. Imagine this though, like,
yeah, we don't have to go into super detail.
Let's just say that someone makes $10,000 of revenue, right? But to do that, they now have to pay tax on that revenue, but they also might have like overhead, right? They have like fixed expenses and variable expenses. They might have employee costs or physical location, or like there could be all these things. And maybe if they're a good margin, maybe they end up with $1,500 in their pocket.
Yeah.
Right? So check this out. What if the tax strategy, see, there's marginal rates on taxes. Highest one being 37.5, go like 0, 10, 15. It kind of climbs up over time.
Yeah.
When you save tax, you save against your highest rate. And when you save tax, so let's say you save $10,000 of tax. Your only cost in that is the accounting team.
Yeah.
So let's say that they cost $1,500 for that 10,000 savings. You flipped it on its head. You're keeping $8,500. When you're earning 10,000, you're keeping 1,500. So tax is one of the most efficient ways to put more money in your pocket. And there's really 3 buckets for it. There's the team that you have, there's the deductions that you take, and it's how you classify your income.
Gotcha.
Right? Team, you just need timely data, so that might be a bookkeeper or a CFO or it could even be a controller. It could be part-time. Then you need a tax strategist, not a historian, that navigates the deductions proactively. Then you might need an attorney, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And if you're making more than $1 million in revenue, then you can help that attorney can help you classify income. And the fourth is if you own a building, you might need an engineer. That's the team. Deductions is you just say, number one, does this apply to my business when I'm spending? And 2, if so, document it. Right? There's so many deductions out there.
Yeah.
199A is a deduction, 132J, 280G. These are all like blah, blah, blah numbers, but this is the qualified business deduction. That could be taking someone from 37% to 29% tax. This is for pool maintenance at a house or gym. This is renting the home out with the Augusta rule. I mean, we could just go. There's just deduction after deduction after deduction that people often miss. But the big thing that people miss is classifying their income. One, if you can move from active to more passive, that's very advantageous from a tax perspective. If you're a high earner, going from ordinary income to capital gain, that could be a huge advantage. 3, tax-free, especially for those people that are charitable. And 4, learning about arbitrage, which is, if I spend $1, I get more than $1 back, where most people spend $1 and yeah, they saved 35 cents, but they lost 65 cents if they spent it on something they didn't want.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to that. But number 4, and we've done studies on this, is how they manage interest. So let's talk about cost of money.
Yeah.
That's your highest interest that you earn or highest interest that you pay, whichever is greater.
Yeah.
Someone has a 29% credit card, that's their cost of money. It's costing them 29% not to pay that down.
Yeah.
If someone has an amazing investment that could get them 10% that's sustainable, that's their cost of money. It depends on who you are and what kind of investor you are. Now, Weston, if I'm willing to lend you money at 0%, how much do you want?
As much as you have.
How quick do you want to pay me back?
Never.
Right, because you could do better than 0%.
Yeah.
Because you know your cost of money is greater. Now, if I'm going to lend that to you at 22.5%, how much do you want?
Not as much.
Right, because it either has to be an amazing opportunity you're going to turn around, because not a lot of people can get a sustainable 22% rate of return.
Yeah.
You know, we can count them on one hand. So this is, most people just pay far too much in interest, but they don't understand that there's always an interest cost, whether you pay cash or whether you borrow. When you pay cash, you forfeit the right to earn interest. When you borrow, you pay it.
Oh, okay.
But there's always an interest cost. Most people don't value their cash enough.
Yeah.
Like, where could they have invested that? What's the opportunity cost?
Gotcha. Because, yeah, I mean, that's the conversation always, well, just pay for it in cash because then you don't have to pay any interest on it.
So on the interest, we want 3 R's. Number 1, renegotiate. Like, you could just get better interest rates if you just have conversations. Reallocate. There's people that have really low interest rate earning, savings, but they're paying high interest rate on their loans. If you're only earning 5, but you're paying 10, pay that off. That's 100% improvement.
Gotcha.
And then the third one is refinance. There's people that have, cash value insurance where they could do that. They've got the ability just to pull things into their mortgage and get a better interest rate, or refinance a car loan and pay off higher interest rate loans. Like, simply just restructuring in a place where you have either better tax advantages or better interest rates or better terms. I mean, these are the things, like these 3 R's, and understanding that you always pay interest. This is a game changer. We analyzed in what would the Rockefellers do? What if we could just save people tax and save them on interest, versus what if we could double the return in their 401k? We took, the average person has 175K in a 401k. We're like, what if we could double the return? So if they thought they were going to earn 7, give them 14%. How we do that, I don't know, but we're just hypothetically looking at it. I'm like, versus what if we could just save them tax and interest? What we found was it was 400% better to save tax and interest than to double a return.
And also, I imagine you have more control over that.
And more guaranteed, more all that kind of stuff, right? So look, we're basically saying these wealth killers, budgeting and the mindset that comes with it, accumulation and the mindset that comes with it, taxes and overpaying them, interest, and then I'd say that the last one is just the faulty frameworks and beliefs. Like, it's just that people have money blocks and they're afraid of money. They don't understand money. They don't get their financial intelligence. They are sitting on money, and they don't have a plan, and therefore they get sold bad ideas without a plan. They don't have a team, and therefore they leak money and overpay on, investment fees, on insurance costs. Like, there's simply, they're not moving towards being financially fit, financially independent, or financially free. They're looking at set it and forget it and delay it instead of accelerate it and create, enough cash flow from assets. Get in a place where you have enough cash flow from assets to cover your expenses, and then you can get there in 10 years or less rather than waiting 30 years for retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that they're literally operating in the worst frameworks possible. And once there's a better framework, and once they address their money beliefs, it's a game changer. But these are the money killers right here.
I feel like a lot of us look at it and say, oh, well, I can't get rid of these stressors in my life until I have money.
Yeah.
How does a person go about that? Because, I mean, money can be stressful, right? Even when you have money, it can be stressful.
Okay, so the faulty frame with that is because they believe it takes money to make money.
Uh-huh.
They don't learn to be resourceful, and they're really caught in that, money, risk, and time. They're stuck in this mindset.
Gotcha.
Right? So here's a better frame. Number 1, make more money. So how do you make more money? Well, you either reach more people or more deeply impact the people you're currently reaching, right? You develop new skill sets. You add value. You solve problems. You build relationships. You serve people. Like, these are the things you have to invest back into yourself. Time, if that's all you have, and money, if that's when you have it.
Gotcha.
Like, that's the first frame, is like, before you go invest your money, you got to learn to make a good living. Like, in, you know, as my friend Stephen Francis says, 7 figures is the new 6 figures in today's world. Then the second is you keep more of what you make.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do you keep more money? That's the 4 I's. 4 I's. IRS, interest, investments, and insurance. You have to just simply have the eyes and the savvy, or the resources, this is what we are built for,
Yeah.
to keep a lot more of what you make without having to cut back.
Mm-hmm.
Then the third part of the framework is grow your money. And how you do that? Become a better investor.
Gotcha. And that
Investor DNA.
And that seems to be third on purpose, right?
Right, because a lot of people skip the development of themselves.
Yeah.
Because they want to grow their money, and that's where budgeting becomes a problem. Now we're not investing in ourselves. We're saving money for a future without growing our skill sets.
Yeah.
And you know, saving 10% of $100,000. What if you just spent 5 years to grow that $100,000 to $500,000 or $1 million that you're making a year, because you get so damn good at what you do?
Yeah. Well, and that's what's interesting. You know, those things don't cost money. Building relationships doesn't have to cost money.
Yep.
Serving people doesn't cost money. You know, those are things that we can all do.
Right. Yeah. And then you just always focus on this. Grow yourself. You're your greatest asset, not a stock, bond, or piece of real estate. The more you increase your human life value, which is your skills, your insights, knowledge, wisdom, and tools. It's all your mental capital. It's your relationship capital. You know, people, networks, organizations, mentors, friends, family. You've got to know and grow your value. And the more you start to learn how to grow that value, the more wealth you're actually going to achieve. And so if you don't grow yourself, all this other stuff's going to be temporary anyway.
So it's really less about, the work or the money or the investment. It's more about you.
Right. The thing is, if I have money, I invest in something I know nothing about, right? And then it produces a really good return. That actually creates risk. Because of my uncertainty being rewarded, I become more of a gambler.
Oh, gotcha.
I become more of a speculator.
Yeah.
Like, if your daughter came to you 18 years from now and she said, I want to be a professional gambler. I'm going to take my life savings to Vegas. What do you want to have happen?
For her tire to go flat so she doesn't make it there.
Yeah, or for her to lose it all.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's small, right?
Yeah. Oh, true. Gotcha.
Right? So this is the thing. In investing, most people don't know what they're investing in, right? They're handing their money over. And then they're just hoping. They've got their fingers crossed for the best, right?
Yeah.
Just hope. And then they're waiting for that future. Now, unfortunately, if the investment starts going down, they're taught, buy on the dip. Market's on sale,
Yeah.
right? You're in it for the long haul. All cliches and memes to keep us from thinking. Keep us stuck in ignorance.
Yeah.
So if instead we said, look, I'm going to take this money, and the first stop is the first piece of real estate's the real estate between my ears. I'm going to invest in my knowledge, in my skills. When I have that knowledge and skills, then I'm going to invest in alignment with that. And if that goes up or down, that's feedback and learn. I can win or have lessons. And then eventually, I'm going to be stronger and strong enough to sustain more wealth and understand why it exists.
Yeah.
It's those people that ignore the step of putting money in themselves and instead immediately put it into stocks or into real estate or even into acquiring some type of business, right? Like if they're just putting it straight there without the knowledge, true knowledge allows us to be of more value, to understand the value, to add value, and to grow.
Yeah.
If we skip the step of knowledge, we rely on risk and we relegate to others.
Yeah. Which of these 5 wealth killers were you most guilty of?
Well, I mean, when I was early on, first married, it was budgeting.
Oh, okay.
Then I graduated into accumulating
Okay.
as my next phase. And then I got a huge tax bill. And I was like, oh, I got to solve this, and was able to get, $54,000 back that I had overpaid by having better strategy. And then, really on that 5th one that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
is just having the wrong belief system.
Wrong framework.
Like I just had that belief system of more equals better. And even that was when I was a budgeter. The more I budget, the better I'll be. The more we cut out, the more I fight with my wife. But it was like, and then eventually it was like, oh no, I'll just make more money and that will be better. But I wasn't thinking about my life, my energy, my family, my enjoyment, or any of those things. So just different phases produce different challenges, But like now, kind of in a place where it's amazing how much faster I can create cash flow now. Even though I'm reinvesting heavily to build, the team and to grow our ability to have impact and add value. And, I look at the way that my money goes is I look at money and I go, how could I take that money and invest in me? Then how could I take that money and invest in my team and help grow them?
Yeah.
And then how can my team help my clients? And then that's where we build a lot of wealth by making sustainable impact.
Yeah.
So it's instead of just saying, here's money that goes to a 401k, and that's as direct of a path, but I think it has very limited upside.
Yeah.
I'm saying money to me, to the team, into the clients, in the business, and then into the future. And I just think there's an exponential opportunity for growth that way.
And it's value-based, right?
Yeah. Yep. So
you're adding value to people's lives. Cool, man.
that's the difference.